So next we're going to be discussing all things virtual production, and joining us to lend their expertise we have Stacia Pfeiffer from Pixelmondo, we have Matt Morgan from Ross Video, and Andy Hook from D&B Audio Technic. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So how's the show been for you so far? Have you managed to get out there and have a look?
Not yet. This is day one, so very much looking forward to the next couple of days and seeing.
I can't believe it's 5 o'clock already. Where's today gone? So I think Friday morning I might get to see some of the show if I'm lucky.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? Matt, how about you? Have you managed to look around?
Not at all. It's been pretty busy. We're back in the other hall, and we've had a pretty constant flow of people. So this is my first time breaking out.
Yeah, fantastic. So, I'm sure virtual production has many arenas. Could you give us an idea of the areas that each of you specialize in? Stacia, if we can start with you.
I work in virtual production. I project manage large installations, stage builds, and I've been working with engineers and technologists to spec hardware and software systems.
And you have some experience in film as well, film production and that kind of
Yes,
thing?
I've also worked on set in film and TV as a virtual production producer.
Fantastic. How about you, Andy?
We created the world's first XR stage back in 2017, 2018 for the Winter Olympics, and then basically we've been on a journey ever since then in like productizing the solution, and we've moved quite a lot now out of the broadcast market into the corporate and education space, and anybody that's becoming a broadcaster using this technology.
Great stuff. And Matt?
Yeah, so I work with corporate customers all over the globe. So anyone from Silicon Valley to big tech, retail, insurance, banking, all those people in different live environments and also studio environments within that context of the corporate world.
Good stuff.
And those are great areas that you all specialize in. So for those who may not know about each of those specialties, can you share a little bit about what are the key technologies that are involved in virtual production with our audience?
So we work primarily with large volumes and medium volumes, not as much with mobile stages or site-specific installation, although that is something that we're seeing more of a need for. We work with large-scale LED installation, and you'll see a number of vendors here, such as Aoto, Rowe, and Sony, who we work with.
And in contrast, actually, we tend to focus more on the smaller volumes. So as opposed to the virtual production and film world that is all at scale and building real sets inside these volumes, we're looking at smaller spaces where they're being used for presentation or corporate and education use, remote teaching, things like that. So we actually focus much more on higher resolution volumes because you really need to see the detail in the quality in the content as a presenter, but also things like camera robotics and image-based lighting and control systems and things that are making it like as easy to use as possible rather than having a full complement of crew on site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very similarly, we focus on smaller studio spaces or event spaces that and virtual comes into play in a way that takes them out of that environment. So you want to create a different environment for multiple needs. So a lot of customers will want to use it for social media. So they'll have maybe a more modern set, and then they want to be in a maybe a real new agey looking studio, and so then we can put them in a new age studio. So different things like that, whatever their context is, different customers within the same company can use the space. So we look for ways to be flexible and deliver those different environments then without having to have multiple physical locations, if you will. So.
Right, and I'm always also quite keen to do a bit of jargon busting on this show, so whenever something comes up that I don't understand, and I was lucky enough to see a presentation by Sarah Cox, who I gather, Andy, you know, it was at a Navy User Group presentation in London, and she started talking about volumes. You've both mentioned that so far. What's a volume in this context?
A volume would be a space that you can fill, and we would say that is on a sound stage, that is a number of panels that you were building in a spherical or J-shaped format inside of a soundstage.
Yeah, well, any environment that's constructed of LED that allows you to immerse people inside it for immersive production. And quite often you'll see different size shapes to suit the production. It may have a floor, it may have a ceiling, it may just be a wall, it may be a combination of all of those. It may have what we call wild walls in the front that are used for reflections. That's the volume. It's the thing that you're producing the content inside.
Excellent. So there you go. For all the viewers at home, if you ever wondered what a volume is in this context, that's what it is. So, Matt, virtual production's presence at shows like ISC has grown quite rapidly in the last 2 or 3 years. What's this evolution been like for you as someone who's working in this field?
Yeah, like I said before, it's the need for customers that have a confined space but want to get out of that space and more flexible uses of a space is where I'm seeing a lot more of them investing in this virtual production and immersive technology. So like we have a company that's out west on the west coast of the States, and they make their own devices, things like that. So the way they have like 70 business units within their company, right? So there's a lot happening. They make their own designs, their own products, and they want to celebrate those together. So they have a big intro where, when you're in this virtual space, you don't need a jib necessarily. You can augment that to swoop in, and they have their whole intro segment. And then they can show the newest products that they're working on and celebrate that together and show what it does, the intricacies, and zoom in on it, right? So I think that's what's really driving a lot of this. They want to know what's happening within their company. Other teams want to know. It drives each other to do better, to celebrate together when they do make those wins, get it across the finish line from ideation to implementation of things. So it's all these different kind of things coming together to make to deliver an audience a message that kind of does more than just a presentation, if you will. So it really immerses them in it.
And Stacia, with virtual production, now we're able to have even more creative and more imaginative, projects, being made. So how does virtual production expand that creative possibility of our storytellers and filmmakers?
Well, you have a lot of opportunity to reach locations that you might not be able to otherwise get to. That's a big one for crews. Instead of flying 30 people around the world to an exotic location, you can now shoot that in whatever city you're basing your production out of, which saves an incredible amount of time and enables indie filmmakers also to perhaps explore locations they might not have otherwise been able to shoot in. For example, the Eiffel Tower or historic monuments. And this is perhaps an untapped use case for virtual production, where I'm hoping in the next few years we're going to see more indie films taking advantage of the tools as well.
And Andy, I know that in virtual production, it sort of uses a lot of different technologies, bringing it all together. You've got LED cameras, screens, lighting, gaming engines, that kind of stuff. Do you ever find that there's a bit of a gap in knowledge in terms of learning how to sort of like those technologies kind of work cohesively?
The great skills gap. I mean, it's a big challenge for us all in all sectors of AV, right? But particularly, I guess, in the virtual production space, because you're using sometimes bleeding edge technologies, right? And it's those skill sets that, where do you go to learn them? We're seeing this massive uptake in educational institutions having VP volumes, having access to this kit, which is great. But what if you're not on one of those courses? Like, how do you even understand this tech and get into it? So we're building a space in central London to try and do outreach. I know there's a lot of other companies doing similar things, but it takes us all to really get on board with that and making the barrier to entry lower, giving people chances to come and play with these bits of tech. So it's difficult, but I think we're making steps forward. I think we are getting there slowly. Yeah,
for sure. Whereabouts is that facility that you're building in London? Because it may be one that we can send the guys for the how they do that
grand
series.
Reveal, but it's going to be in the Science Museum in central London, opening at the end of February.
Is that an exclusive
that
reveal?
That is exclusive of Vixa. We're launching a new immersive technologies experience centre.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, we definitely have to get down to that.
Oh yes, please count me in. So this question I will open up to all three of you. So how does virtual production integrate with traditional filmmaking techniques, and are you seeing that there's any challenges when trying to do that integration between virtual production and more working on traditional sets?
I've got a quick one. I'll just say one thing we saw with virtual production is a large amount of hardware coming over from the broadcast industry, which will perhaps be of interest to our Avixa and ISC audience. I don't know what you guys could add to that, but I think there was a large learning gap to integrate broadcast technology and real-time production into traditional film crews.
And I think it's the other way around, where we're seeing this broadcast AV convergence, particularly in the corporate and education spaces. But the thing that falls through the cracks quite often is content, right? These things only work when the content's good, and people are quite often used to outsourcing content production to an agency and getting a file and playing that file back. And now we live in a world where that content needs to be built in a game engine, and learning that whole workflow is very different for a lot of clients.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I think, and it's really both sides of it. So it's really just finding that gap in closing it, being accessible to people to learn more, to be able to know what it's capable of and learn the standards of how AV and IT 15 years ago was coming together, and now AV, IT, and broadcast are all coming together. So we're in this new exciting time of kind of seeing this next emerging kind of solution. So it's a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we have tons more questions for you, but as I say, time flies when you're having fun. We've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, and Andy, I hope we're not going to cause you any jeopardy in your job for revealing that top secret information.
I'm waiting for the marketing.
We won't tell anyone. We won't say anything.